Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would talk about the Su-17M2. This is a strike aircraft that is in the Soviet tree, and it is at 10.7 in air realistic and 10.0 in ground, and it is completely worthless to play. I would not bother with this at all if you enjoy your sanity. It is a vehicle that doesn't fit in the current meta. I don't know what meta it's supposed to fit in at 10.7, but it definitely isn't this one, and even in ground at 10.0, it struggles because of its lack of good optics. So the Su-17M2 has one critical failure before it even starts, and it's a failure that a few other vehicles also have around this BR range and usually don't get played either. And guess what? They're even lower BR than this thing because of that critical failure and have been put down in BR, but for some reason the Su-17M2 hasn't. It doesn't have any countermeasures. This vehicle is at 10.7 in air realistic, and it doesn't have any countermeasures. Every other vehicle that doesn't have countermeasures, the T2, the F1, the J35D that used to be higher BR, have all gone down in BR to 10.0, 9.7, 10.3, whatever it is, while also BR decompression has come in. But the Su-17M2 has just been forgotten. It is one of those vehicles that nobody plays because it's an awful vehicle, and therefore there's probably no statistics on it, so therefore they've probably forgotten it exists. So it doesn't have any countermeasures. The idea of using rockets as countermeasures is something that technically you can do on this vehicle, but it also doesn't work because you are such a large heat target with the massive engine that this thing has. And also, guess what they did recently? They moved down a bunch of vehicles in BR, which are now either lower than it, the same as it, or basically in the same matchmaking. Stuff like the MiG-21 BIS, the good old Chinese jet, the J7D that they moved down, and all of these vehicles annihilate the Su-17M2. The other vehicles that you'll also see at this BR have a bunch of all-aspect missiles, such as the Su-22, which you basically have in the same matchmaking. Then also stuff like the Su-25s, which are lower BR than you, by the way. The standard Su-25 is at 10.3, whereas this thing is at 10.7, which is once again hilarious. The A-10 that exists, and then also stuff, as I said, like the MiG-21 BIS, which now is at 11.0, since it was getting absolutely raw-dogged by F-14s, and they pushed it down in BR. So the Su-17M2 has the wonderful opportunity of getting raw-dogged by everything that exists. And guess what? It even sees a bunch of tornadoes. Tornadoes which have countermeasures and all-aspect missiles that you can't dodge, because you basically are a platform where you are huge, you are not very maneuverable, and also, once again, no countermeasures. I have no idea how this vehicle has not gone down in BR. It makes absolutely no sense that this is the vehicle that has been left alone, whereas everything else has gone down in BR that doesn't have any countermeasures. Everything has gone down, even stuff like the MiG-23M that is much more capable than this in pretty much every way. So what armament does this vehicle have? Well, from an air realistic standpoint, it can carry the Incendiary bombs, the ZB500s. Right now they're quite good. You're able to knock out 2 bases with them. They did fix with the Incendiary bombs that you do have to be going under Mach 1 to drop them, so they're not as good, but they're still great at taking out bases. You also get a bunch of random bombs, you get a bunch of random missiles, the Kh-23s and 25s in the house, and also you can bring along a Kh-29L, but once again the optic itself isn't very good. You have a bunch of rockets, including the S-24Bs, and also a bunch of other rockets that turn up, and technically gun pods, which are completely worthless. None of these secondary armaments work in air realistic, and in ground realistic there's a reason why this thing is 10.0, and it's because it can't defend itself, and it has really, really, really bad optics for the missiles that it has. Therefore you are very limited in how you can play it, and you're at a BR where everything has IR missiles which you can't dodge and also don't have countermeasures for. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Then it also has 4 R60s, which I suppose is great, but you have vehicles at 11.0, so literally 0.3 BR higher than you, that have 6 R60Ms. which are the all-aspect version of the R60. Therefore, you have actually the same armament as vehicles have at 9.3, such as the Yak-38, and it's about as usable as the Yak-38 right now, if not way worse, because of the matchmaking you have. So why is this thing at its BR? I have no idea. The only reason I can think that this is at its BR is because of the engine. It has the Saturn AL21F3, which does produce a lot of thrust. This thing is incredibly quick for the area that it's in. Technically, you can outrun anything that is around. If you know how to use the variable swept wings, you can actually run pretty well in a straight line, very much like a dart, but if you turn, of course, you lose all of your stuff. It also has an RWR, which isn't terrible, like it's a fine RWR, doesn't have a radar, does have the gun radar, which is completely worthless, and also the RWR doesn't detect all of the targets that you're fighting against anyway, so you'll have a wonderful time dealing with them. So the Su-17 as a grind was horrific. Basically, you just bomb bases and then use your R60s to maybe go after a plane, which has countermeasures, which you won't be able to kill, or you go after the AIs. That's literally all you can do. There's nothing else that this vehicle can do. It was a grind where I had to turn off my brain, literally put on like a TV show, a movie to get through. It was not pleasant, it was not enjoyable, it was worthless. If I didn't commit to doing this during this event, in my head, I just wouldn't have played it, because it is so bad. None of the modifications really help this thing. It still has the fundamental problems. The only thing that they do is basically make it faster, and also means that you can technically grind it out quicker, but that is literally it. So my overall recommendation of this thing is stay far, far away from this, and I'm sure that eventually they will lower this thing in BR, because if they don't, it is just in a horrific place. It makes no sense where it is at all. Being the highest BR vehicle without countermeasures, and also having such a small impact on the battle, is insane. You will just have a better time playing any of the other strike aircraft around this BR. They either have countermeasures or better missiles, or have better flexibility in terms of what you can do with them, and also at the same time usually have access to the same weaponry, if not better. The stats in the Su-17M2, it took me 59 battles to grind this out, which is quite a lot for this vehicle. The reason why is because we died so many times so early on, because guess what? If you plan to go and hit the bases, because you have to in this thing, and you have no way of defending yourself, most of the time as you're doing that, if you aren't the fastest there, which sometimes you are if you have the upgrades, but if you're not, guess what you're going to see on the other end? That's right, MiG-21 Bisses, you'll see F4s, such as F4Ss? No, not F4Ss, the other F4s, the F4Es. And then you'll also see stuff like Tornadoes, which all have all-aspect missiles and will just annihilate you. So we had 59 battles, 44 deaths, 55 air kills, 50 ground kills. This vehicle was awful. They need to move it in BR to at least give it a chance of life. I understand that there's these vehicles where they're worried that they're too fast to be able to deal with. The F1 and the T2 are lower BR than this by a lot. The fact that the F1 is faster than this thing, it has better missiles, and also has better control than this thing, and a better gun. It's at 10.0 right now. The T2 is at 9.7, and also other vehicles like the J35, which don't have countermeasures, are at 10.3. Move this down, it makes no sense. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.